special thanks to IPPF for being today together on the permanent missions of Argentina, Mexico, and the United States at the UN. It's March 8th. Today, we pay tribute and celebrate past achievements, as we have been hearing this morning. But it's also an important day for a call to action and to identify strategies that work, as we have been hearing today. In 2022, the world is more complex than when we gathered together last March 8 in 2021. It is difficult to engage in our business as usual conversations without a hard feeling on the need to build peace and promote women's and women's organizations' role in building more equal and democratic societies. As Michelle Bachelet raised earlier this morning, we also have to share our deep solidarity with all those women that have been and are at the forefront today, but also ensure that the new women's activism can continue to grow, as we heard in terms of the recent experience and the movements in Argentina. From UN Women, we are, of course, making strong calls to continue to promote women's rights organizations' participation in all public policies, but also in terms of the role of human rights defenders and environmental defenders that can continue to advance all our rights and are not criminalized. This year, the CSW, it's gonna advance clearly on the intergovernmental agenda on gender equality and climate change and disaster risk reduction. And this is why we make this call. Coming back to the question, the Beijing Agenda for Action continues 20 years later to be the most visionary agenda for women's human rights everywhere. If we focus in our region and the economic and social rights, as you asked me, the situation is marked by increasing poverty and inequalities for all, and particularly for women, and particularly for indigenous, Afro-descendant, and rural women. According to the last Panorama Social from LAC from 2021, just published this year, due to COVID-19 multiple crises, the extreme poverty rate in Latin America has risen. The number of people went from 81 million to 86 million. So the huge outflow of women from the labor market, as we alerted in 2020 and in 2021, forced back participation rates 18 years. And of course, we have estimations on how this can recover in the future, but the rate is much slower for women than for men to being part of the economy and to recover the situation previous to COVID-19. So we need to engage also in decent work creation and worker rights to recover better, because the inequality is worse today than 2 years later. We know as well that the unequal distribution of care work is one of the critical nodes of gender equality, and the COVID-19 crisis make this more evident for everyone. This unfair distribution of the social organization continues to hit harder on women. And of course, in this region, it's implying higher risk to ensure women's economic autonomy and their physical autonomy and sexual and reproductive rights all across the region. As we could hear today, Latin America has advanced a lot in legal frameworks, policy efforts, and the different ways the movement has been trying to advance and make a reality sexual and reproductive rights. But this is not enough. Last year, we made a huge effort, I would say, across the world with the Generation Equality Forum, as you asked, as a global gathering, to really strengthen political will and financial commitments to advance the Beijing Agenda for Action. The forum has generated huge commitments from all actors, and we talk about 40 billion of financial commitments in US dollars. And we will continue to monitor how much of this is being implemented, how much of this is being implemented with women's and grassroots organizations in the field, and how this really advances women's rights and gender equality. The Bodily, Autonomy and Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights Coalition within the GEF, as you asked, Eugenia, was co-led by the government of Argentina And we also had a strong participation from FEIM and ECMIA. And it's a strong instrument to continue to advance Beijing. However, it requires also clear and concrete efforts across the countries and in the field. We always have this challenge, how we translate global commitments, global platforms for action into real changes in the day-to-day. I'm gonna take just 1 second to end, since I am also the representative in Argentina, to really congratulate the efforts shown by Ambassador Squef and shared by Dora Barrancos on the Argentinian government and the movement towards the sexual and reproductive rights bills and rights. And we will continue to support all efforts carried for an intergenerational national care system and equal parental leave. But, and I'm closing, there is still a long way to go together all across the region. We need to continue to work together and change this gender-based violence culture that has been naturalized by our societies. Effort like this one, the work at IPPF and everyone here can help us to move on and really feel better next March 8th when we sit together again. Thank you very much.